Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Great to be here.
So today we're tuning into something a bit different, the ACVA Veterans Voice podcast. It's run out of Antrim County.
Right. And we really wanted to dig into what this podcast actually does, for the veterans in that community.
Exactly. What's its role, its impact on the ground, and also how it seems to be growing, reaching more people.
Yeah, we listened to quite a few bits, and it's pretty wide-ranging. They talk about immediate needs veterans might have.
Like what kind of things?
Real practical stuff. A roof starts leaking, the fridge breaks down, maybe trouble with heating bills or needing wood for heat in the winter, stuff like that.
Okay, so real life, urgent problems.
Exactly. And then they connect that to the resources available, how the ACVA can maybe step in. They also get into service-connected disability claims.
Right, that's a big one. Applying for benefits based on service injuries or illnesses.
And even specifics within that, like convalescent care, the support you might need if you're recovering after, say, surgery related to your service condition.
And listening to them, you really get this sense they're trying to, encourage people to just ask.
Definitely. There's a big emphasis on it being okay to ask for help, like no judgment.
Yeah, they seem to understand that the first thing someone asks for might not be the only thing or even the main thing they need help with.
Precisely. It feels like they're building this safe space for veterans to just say, look, I'm struggling a bit here without feeling ashamed.
That's crucial.
And something else that stood out was how they address the different experiences within the veteran community, like female veterans specifically.
Oh, interesting. What about them?
Well, they pointed out how sometimes their service isn't automatically seen or recognized in the same way as male veterans.
Ah, okay. That sort of invisibility problem.
Exactly. And that can create real barriers, right? Barriers to getting support or just feeling like they fully belong to that veteran identity.
Makes sense. But it's not all heavy topics, is it? I heard some lighter moments, too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You definitely hear that camaraderie, that, shared bond from service, like old friends catching up.
That's good. Keeps it human.
Totally. And on a very practical level, the podcast acts like a community bulletin board almost.
How so?
They're sharing info about local stuff, American Legion dinners, maybe a veterans breakfast happening somewhere, blood drives, things that connect people locally.
So it's knitting the community together, not just pushing out VA info.
Right. It's like this central hub, really. They're spreading the word about resources, but also diving into mental health. PTSD comes up, moral injury.
Big topics.
Yeah.
PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, and moral injury. That's about experiences that clash with your own moral code.
Yeah, exactly. And they're not afraid to be critical either. They discussed the Transition Assistance Program, TAPS.
Oh, the program for leaving the military.
Right. And they talked about maybe where it falls short. So it's not just cheerleading. It's honest conversation about what works and what maybe doesn't.
That's refreshing.
Yeah.
You also mentioned hearing personal stories.
Yeah, definitely. Veterans sharing their own experiences, navigating life after service, getting into VA programs like the MOV program.
The health and wellness one.
That's the one. And hearing those stories, it just drives home how important that peer connection is, knowing you're not the only one going through it.
So how does a local podcast achieve this? It sounds like it's becoming pretty embedded.
Well, it seems a big part of it is partnerships. They actively work with other local groups. AMVETS was mentioned, the Elk Rapids Post.
So they're not operating in a silo. They're linking up.
Exactly. Amplifying their reach by working together makes perfect sense.
And they tackle the really nitty-gritty stuff, too, the VA benefits.
Oh, yeah. Dependency benefits, survivor benefits, DIC they call it.
For spouses and kids if a veteran passes away from service-connected issues.
Right. And VA healthcare updates, even, like what's available for dental care. Getting that info directly from people who work in this field every day. It's huge.
Incredibly valuable, yeah. Cuts through the noise.
And maybe one of the most critical areas they cover is suicide prevention.
Wow. Okay, that's obviously vital.
They go into the national strategy. They push the Veterans Crisis Line. 988, then press 1.
Good to repeat that. 988, press 1.
Yeah. And they talk about difficult but necessary things, like lethal means safety.
Reducing access to things someone might use to harm themselves during a crisis.
Right. And safety planning. Plus, they discuss the Compact Act.
Which expands emergency care access for veterans in crisis, doesn't it?
It does. It really shows a deep commitment to veteran well-being, covering all these angles.
It's interesting, too, how often that idea of veteran identity seems to surface,
Yeah, and constantly making the point that it includes everyone who served. Women veterans, again, making sure they're seen.
as they should be.
And then there's education benefits, vocational rehab, Chapter 31, helping vets with disabilities find work. It just shows the sheer breadth of what they're trying to address.
So much practical help, too. You mentioned claims earlier.
Right. They offer insights into navigating that whole VA claims process, which, let's face it, can be intimidating. They draw on their own ACVA experience.
And specific health issues.
Yeah, things like exposure concerns, AFFF, the firefighting foam was mentioned.
Okay. And they even talked about the physical space.
Uh-huh. Creating a place, like their office, that's welcoming, private, where veterans feel okay walking in and asking for help.
It all sounds great, but how do they actually get this information out there? That's always a challenge, isn't it?
It is. And the podcast seems like one key answer to that challenge. They also mentioned partnerships with local businesses, even veteran-owned ones.
Embedding themselves even further in the community fabric.
Exactly. And underlying it all is this clear current of advocacy. For veterans, for their families, they share stories of overcoming VA hurdles, which gives hope, you know?
Definitely. So, about this growth you mentioned earlier, how are they actually connecting? How do we know the network's expanding?
Well, we don't have, hard listener stats in front of us, but the fact they're consistently putting out episodes, covering such a diverse range of topics, bringing on guests.
Yes, veterans sharing their stories.
Yeah, and promoting local events. It all points to, real engagement. It suggests people are listening, participating, and the word is getting out.
It feels active, not passive.
Exactly. It sounds less like just a broadcast and more like an ongoing conversation within that veteran community.
So wrapping this up, this deep dive really shows the ACVA Veterans Voice podcast isn't just, well, talking heads.
Not at all. It's acting as a real support system, isn't it? A connector to resources, a place for sharing stories.
And a community builder right there in Antrim County.
Yeah, it takes complex stuff like benefits and makes it more understandable. Connects veterans to help, both VA help and local help. And those personal stories, they matter. They reduce stigma.
Make people feel less alone. And it seems clear that its reach, its network is growing. The regular content, the variety, the focus on relevance, it's obviously hitting a nerve.
It really seems to be becoming a vital communication channel for them.
When you think about the range we just discussed, money worries, survivor benefits, mental health, community dinners.
It's pretty comprehensive, addressing veterans and families where they are with what they need in a way that feels relatable.
So it sounds like for any veterans or their families listening, maybe looking for info or connection, this ACVA podcast could genuinely be worth checking out.
Definitely seems like a valuable resource to explore.
It really highlights something, doesn't it? The power of just sharing experiences, making information accessible.
Yeah, this podcast seems to be building a stronger, more informed, more connected veteran community. It's kind of a lifeline.
A growing network of support. Really fascinating to see how they're leveraging that podcast format.